the people that we work with, it's not that they're burnt out, because again, it's not like mental health crisis or anything like that. They're not burnt out, but they're probably burning, and they want to be fit and they want to be their best and they want to be great parents and partners and friends and teammates and leaders. They want to show up.
Cory Chadwick in the virtual building, I guess I should say. Welcome. Super excited. Cory, you and I have something in common. You on your LinkedIn, your profile says you were a dad, a husband, and the founder of the Mental Gym. I always introduce myself as husband, father, coach in that order. Those are the things that mean the most to me. So I think that's one of the many things we have in common, and I'm looking forward to talking more about the other stuff. So welcome.
Thanks, buddy. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. So before we get started and dive into this thing called wellness and well-being, we're going to be on the subject of emotional, mental wellness today. And I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts, your guidance, your experiences on that. But tell us a little bit more about what got you on this journey, what lights your fire, what gets you up in the morning, and kind of where that's led you in terms of your professional career.
Sure. There's a bunch of questions in there. So maybe I'll start at the beginning. Yeah, I mean, do you remember that feeling? Maybe as like a teenager, maybe it was earlier than that, but that feeling like you've got potential, but you don't know what to do with it, or you don't even really understand what it is and what direction to point yourself in and how to figure it out. And you're asking yourself all those questions. And I think a lot of us can relate to that, even if we don't talk about it much. But that was definitely me. And it was a frustrating thing for me, but also an exciting thing. It's like, how can I become the best version of myself? And who is that person? Like, what do they look like? And what do they contribute to the world? And where mental health came on my radar, or mental illness at the time, was my mom suffered from mental illness. So I'd gone through some kind of difficult times growing up. I don't want to pretend like I had a rough childhood or anything. I actually had a fantastic childhood, but certainly had some down moments along the way. But one of the biggest ones especially, was my mom suffering from mental illness. And that really became clear when I was a teenager. And I think she did a really good job of hiding it from us as long as she could, which people tend to do. We're very good at presenting an image of ourselves that we want other people to see, right? And I get it. Like, she's our mom. She's trying to protect us, but she tried to hide it. There was a real stigma about mental health then, and mental illness, and there still is, unfortunately, a little bit of a stigma, maybe more than a little bit, which I think is ridiculous that there's any stigma, but there is, and there certainly was. We're talking about 30 years ago now. Unfortunately, things got worse and worse, and it became obvious that the mom was really struggling. She had bipolar disorder, and it was a very severe version of bipolar disorder. So she'd go through periods of really kind of highs, manic behavior, and then really long stretches of deep depression, where it was really hard to watch and to see her. And I remember one of the hardest things through all this was feeling like, here's somebody who I love so much, who was a really wonderful mom to me throughout my entire life. And she's in so much pain that, I mean, it's so hard to see somebody you love suffer, but also feeling like none of it's in your control. Like there's nothing you can do to help her or to save her. And that feeling really intensified when I remember I got a phone call one day. And I, at the time, didn't even realize how bad the situation was, but I got a phone call telling me that mom tried to take her life. A short while later, she tried again, and it wasn't long after that she went through with it. And it's an exceptionally difficult thing to experience in your life. You hear about these things, but that doesn't mean that it's close to home, and when it is, it's not like there's really like a handbook that you've been studying on how to handle this and how to deal with this. It was tough for sure. It was just heartbreaking, really. But I remember also this feeling of, part of it was there was a little bit of feeling of like I was at peace that she wasn't suffering anymore. Like that, there was some peace in that, and I liked that. But the other thing was like I was worried her condition might be genetic. What if it is genetic? What if this is coming for me too? And if it is, what do I do? And that scared me. Now at the time I was a psychology major, and I'd always been kind of into that way of thinking and understanding, who we are and why we think the way we think and make decisions the way we do and things like that. And still this part of me who wants to figure out what my potential means and step into it one day. And so I realized that I kind of have, well, three choices here, same choices that all of us have. I could cross my fingers and hope for the best, and that just really didn't seem like a strategy. I could wait and see what happens, and maybe things get bad. And if things get bad, then I can be reactive and try to deal with it then, hoping it's not too late to work my way back up to some level of just being normal and kind of functioning on a normal level. And again, that just didn't really speak to me. That didn't seem like a strategy either. And then my third option was to be proactive and get mentally fit. And that just made a whole lot more sense to me. So like I said, I was a psych major, and just a little bit at a time, I started just kind of rewiring and upgrading how I thought, how I made decisions, how I behaved. It was something that I did just as this kind of like slow and steady process. I'd kind of find another piece of the puzzle and add that piece of the puzzle to what I was already working on and developing for myself. And it was really something that played out over time. But one thing that I noticed is as I was working on this for prevention sake, I was also combining it with a lot of leadership development principles that seemed to make a lot of sense to me. And I was paying attention to people in my life who I knew who were really happy and people who were really unhappy. And I could see, I could really notice, and largely in my mom, like for everything that went on. She was actually a really great case study because I knew her so well, and I could see her at her worst and I could see her at her best. And unfortunately with my father, it was a similar situation. My father had issues with addiction, and I could see him at his worst and him at his best. And I could really notice these differences. And then I started noticing these patterns in other people as well. And so that really kind of fed my education, if you will, and my interest in all of this. And again, I just started like putting pieces together. And over time, people started noticing. I was really happy and I was doing really well in my business. I was in a different line of work at the time. I had a different business. I was in the restaurant and bar business for many years. I just, my relationships were great. I was working long hours, but I never felt like I was burning out. I always felt like calm and in control and thinking clearly. I felt great. And again, just people really noticing, and they started asking, what have you figured out that we haven't figured out? And I realized just over years, I had been developing this way of operating, really, this, again, way of thinking, way of making decisions, way of behaving that all seemed so organic. I don't recall ever making a big change in my life. It was always just these micro adjustments, a little tweak here, a little adjustment there, always manageable, and just letting those things develop on their own. And so, I wasn't doing this with the intention of sharing it with anybody. Really, this was just for my own life. How can I be the best version of myself? How can I be happy? How can I one day be a great husband and a great father? How can I impact people and be a great leader? Like, these are all things that matter to me. And one thing kind of led to another. And I just remember I remember becoming a dad. This really stood out to me. I was in the delivery room. My first son was born. And I think every parent relates to this feeling of like your perspective changes almost instantly. It's like life just isn't the same anymore. And you can feel that happen in like a split second. But one thing that really kind of smacked me in the face was this feeling like I want the world to be a better place for my son to grow up in. And I realized that I had something here that I could contribute that could hopefully help in some way. And that's what really got me sharing with people. I had some mentors who were kind of on me about it for a while. You got to be sharing this with people. You got to be sharing this with people. I was like, like, sure, but whatever. I was kind of dismissive of it a little bit, and maybe just underestimating the impact that it could have. But yeah, becoming a dad changed everything for me, and that's when I really got to work on sharing with people. I started working with high potential student leaders because I was looking for that, that younger version of me that I would have loved something like this when I was a teenager, because it was, as much as it was built on mental health principles, it was really about potential, right? Personal development, leadership development. How can you be that best version of yourself and show up as your best consistently? And then just working with students, it was just like a natural progression, working with educators and then athletic teams and athletes and their coaches and business leaders and business teams and companies and that sort of thing that just kept evolving. And then one day I was always looking for the better way of sharing it with people and helping people and helping people be their best. And I was in the middle of a CrossFit class and the light bulb went off. Wow, we're doing this for our bodies. We have these gyms for our bodies. We need this for our minds. Why aren't we doing this for our minds? And that's what got me started on the creation of the mental gym. And here we are today.
What a great story. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. There's so much of what you just shared that resonates with me. Mental illness in my family, struggling with it. Nobody took their lives, but in a lot of ways, it caused a lot of strife in our family.
Yeah.
Not understanding, especially as a young adult, not understanding the emotional dysregulation and like how it affects me, how it affects them, that they're a human going through things and they don't know how to manage it. And therefore they project it onto other people, and how that makes me feel, how that makes them feel, and all the struggles that come from it. I've shared before publicly my struggles between my father and I, and how we're closer now than we've ever been. But a big part of that was a lot of forgiveness, a lot of recognition of
Yeah.
the symptoms and the problems and the signs, and realizing it's why I'm on the journey I am now. Is human behavior is fascinating to me. I mean, we're one of the most impactful species on the planet when it comes to things happening. And so why do we make the decisions we make? Why do we do the things we do? How do we make ourselves better? And so your story resonates very strongly with mine, and that idea of wanting to give back. Arthur Brooks talks about, social psychologist, Harvard. He wrote Strength to Strength, which is somewhere behind me, right over my left ear there. And he also just wrote a book. It's on my list of things to blog about, but it's sitting right here, Build the Life You Want. And he talks about, like, he's doing selfish research. He calls it me search. He wants to know this stuff. He wants to know more about how to live a more successful, fulfilling life. And so he just happened to start studying it, and people were interested, and he was, academic in nature. So he started sharing it. And I think most of us, especially coaches and mentors, are just trying to be the person they needed when their younger self was growing up.
Yeah.
And that's true for me 100%. I've found, similar to you, I struggle with the idea of, like, people paying. I'm okay with it now. I've gotten better at it, but people paying me for this stuff because it's so, like, why wouldn't we do this? This is stuff that I do. This comes, maybe not as easy to me, but understandably to me. Like, it just makes sense to do it. But I'm finding more and more, like you, it does not come naturally to people. It is not easy to implement. Simple, maybe, but not easy.
Right.
To understand.
Yeah.
Some
Simple, not easy. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's awesome. So you started the mental gym.
Yep.
You started meeting with people, groups, you said CEOs, teams, what have you. Kind of, where did your practice start to lead into, kind of, as we focus on today, with the people that you work with? What kind of clientele do you typically see? What kind of things are you typically doing with them?
Yeah. So think of a physical gym with a group exercise class, right? Like a CrossFit class, a spin class, something like that. And you go in there and there's a trainer leading your workout. And it's the exact same thing here. There's a trainer who's leading your workout, is taking you through a 1 hour workout. We do it 1 hour once a week, really designed to help you, one, really enjoy the experience, right? I don't believe that mental health in any way needs to be dry or boring or academic. Because everything that we do is so proactive, it's not reactive. It's not therapy. It's not counseling. It's nothing like that. It's entirely proactive. So let's build the tools. Let's develop the skills. Let's build the mental habits. Let's develop the mindset that we need to really be our best selves. And let's do it together. So again, we're combining proactive mental fitness with personal and leadership development. The environment is so great. The energy is fantastic. It's positive. It's safe. It's inclusive. There's no judgment. And people just get to work on themselves and be better versions of themselves. And as they do it, they're getting mentally healthy and fit. It doesn't really feel so much like we're not like working on our mental health. It's not like that. It's like, man, let's go to the mental gym and get our workout in this week. And so again, same focus on just consistent incremental improvement. It's never like this huge change. You're never saying to somebody, you know what you need to do? You need to go meditate every day. It's like I'm a huge believer in meditation. I meditate every day, but that doesn't mean that telling someone else that they need to do it, right? Or go exercise more or sleep better. You got to develop the thinking patterns, your brain's got to get wired differently if you're actually going to adopt these habits and make them sustainable. And so just being able to see the growth in people in the mental gym, and also how much they enjoy it, how much they genuinely enjoy the workouts and the process and doing it together. The connection that happens with people is really, really special, because it's very real. It's not fluffy. It's not no BS. It's just, we're real and honest with each other. And again, there's no judgment. So when you asked who I work with and who the mental gym is for, we're talking leadership teams, emerging leaders, high potential people. Generally speaking, you're talking about smart, ambitious, growth-minded people within companies that, again, tends to be leadership a lot of the time, who recognize that they're, it's not like they're in mental health crisis, but look, life's challenging, right? Like, like you're a dad, you're a husband, it ain't easy. It's not easy. And you've got work and your responsibilities all over the place, and you're just trying to keep up with day-to-day life. And it can be a lot. It can really be a lot. And people are stressed and they're tired and they're anxious and they're sometimes overwhelmed. And the people that we work with, it's not that they're burnt out, because again, it's not like mental health crisis or anything like that. They're not burnt out, but they're probably burning, and they want to be fit and they want to be their best and they want to be great parents and partners and friends and teammates and leaders. They want to show up. They want to influence people and make a positive impact. And those are the kind of people who come to the mental gym. It's, how can I be the best version of myself? How can I show up at my best? How can I create a ripple effect that makes other people better? They want to live their best lives at work and at home. And they want to do it with other like-minded people and do it in a way that feels modern, that's proactive, that speaks to who they want to be and the kind of organization they want to be. I wouldn't say there's a specific industry or sector or anything that we work with. It's not that at all. It's more a leadership attitude, the kind of leadership who says, one, they really genuinely care about their people and their people's happiness and well-being, but also they've got a business to run and performance matters and leadership matters and the bottom line matters. So let's take care of all of that. So we work with really good people and great leaders, and creating a whole lot more of them.
That's amazing. It sounds like a phenomenal place. I can't wait to show up someday. I think that you really struck a chord when you mentioned the idea of like, okay, I meditate. Meditate's one of the best practices. We all know exercise is great, but 13% of the Americans exercise. And so just logically understanding it's beneficial for us isn't enough, right? Meditation is great. That doesn't mean everybody's going to just hop on the train and do it, because our thought patterns have to change.
Yes.
And I remember writing a blog post that said, if I could tell you that you needed to change one thing about your daily habits, and that could be food, that could be, you eat 4 meals a day, you exercise for an hour a day, you sleep for 8 hours a day. What if I told you do something 60,000 times a day? Right? Wouldn't that be an impactful thing to change? And the thing that we do 60,000 times a day is have thoughts. We have an average of 60,000 thoughts a day, and somewhere around 80 to 90% of them are negative. And almost the same statistic is that the repetitive thoughts that we had yesterday. And so until we can really start to make an impact on those things, it's really hard to interrupt those patterns to the point where we can make a change. Ironically, meditation is the act of interrupting our thought cycles so that we can make a change. So honestly, if there's anything that I do recommend to people, right? Like, do you start on exercise? No. Do you start on changing their career path? No. I start on their mental processes, their thoughts, their beliefs, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think you're absolutely onto it there. I got to ask, because I owned a fitness facility for a while, like a physical one. I was a CrossFit level 2 trainer for a little while. I think we mentioned that before. And so what does this look like? Like, what's physically like when we're there, when you're doing it? Can you share a little bit about like what the process kind of looks like to the person going through it?
I mean, physically it looks like a Zoom call. It's that's what we do. We hop on a call together. Again, we do that 1 hour a week. Yeah, it just looks like a regular Zoom call, but we take you through a process. Our workouts are designed a certain way to, hey, we kind of do what we do. We start every workout with wins, like progress, growth, hearing some good news. A lot of it has to do with taking the tools that we're working on in the gym and, you mentioned before about, everybody knows they need to exercise, but you said only 13% of Americans exercise. So knowledge isn't the problem. We have knowledge. You can very easily Google, like, what should I do for exercise, or how to improve my diet, or how to meditate. I think we got to get out of this rhythm of like, give me some tips and give me some hacks. And it's like, I'll tell you every single thing I know. But until we actually rewire how you think and make decisions, nothing's going to change. So we always start out with the wins and good news. And again, hearing how, like, what happened this week when you took this tool that we worked on last week and implemented it. Tell us what you learned. Most of the time, it's a fantastic story that they hear. I didn't even think I could do this thing, but this tool was so simple, so I implemented it. And wow, like, here's this thing that happened at work with my boss, or with my team, or with my wife, or my kids. It's a really, really great thing, especially when people think like, I don't think I can do that thing. It's like, just try it. And then they do it. And then what's so great about that is week after week, they really develop like this trust in themselves and in the process of these micro changes of really adding up. There's a real compounding effect to this. So we start with wins. We take you through each workout's got a new topic, a new relevant topic. We do our workouts in 4-week sprints. So it's kind of like a 4-week theme. And then after 4 weeks, we'll jump into a new 4-week theme. And we do it like that. Throughout that workout, we're challenging you to think differently and kind of think outside of the way that you normally think, but it's very interactive. We talk about real stuff. We get a lot of people sharing their opinions or asking questions, or we ask a lot of questions. We want to know what you think. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? Does this make sense to you? Does that make sense to you? Right. And just getting you to kind of come to a place on your own of, when you leave here today, who do you want to be and how do you want to show up? Right. And the next time you encounter this situation, you're equipped for it. You've got the tool, you're developing the skills, you're implementing it, you're integrating it into your life. And I can kind of get into the nuts and bolts of how that process works, but for the most part, we work on that one concept. We're trying to make that one micro adjustment that week and compound it. We wrap up our workouts with takeaways from that workout. What did you learn today? What's really sticking with you? Also like to throw a little bit of gratitude in there, because we all know how important gratitude is for us, for our mood, for our happiness, great for our mental health. So we incorporate kind of some standard mental health practices within the workouts, but for the most part, we're getting you to think and think differently, and we're challenging you. The kind of people who really thrive in the mental gym are people who love the challenge, right? It's not, like you said before, it's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. And if you want it to be easy, this probably isn't the place for you. If you're looking for a quick fix, it's definitely not the place for you. But if you're looking to really take sustainable steps to show up at your best, then these workouts are for you, for sure.